Welcome back, everybody. We appreciate you tuning back into the channel for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Megan, today what I want to talk about is there are times when you can be fishing, let's say you're fishing down a bank or something like that, and all of a sudden based on my experience, I know that I've run into a group of fish, not just one fish. And it's based on what's happened when I got that bite. And so I've thought that it might be a good idea that we talk about that in today's episode, because I think a lot of guys can go along, catch that fish, and then they just keep working down the bank, and they just passed the mother lode. I mean, they could have just 100% gotten on them right there, and they didn't even know that they just went right by a whole school of fish.
Well, they would know if they had forward-facing sonar, but
we're not talking about that, right? We're not getting into that today, okay?
I know.
All right, we'll be back right after this. We'll talk about this, guys.
Okay.
Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher.
I'm Megan Fuller. Sorry, isn't it exciting how bright it is outside?
It's great. I'm loving this. We can, hopefully this is the beginning of the rest of the spring season. That would be nice.
I'm squinting, but I'm loving it. So you're telling me that you can be fishing, you can catch one fish, and just by how you caught that one fish, you can tell that there is a multiple amount of fish that are there.
There are several factors that will give me a hint that it might be with several fish as opposed to just a lone fish that bit my lure.
Huh. Okay. What are those?
Well, okay, so the number one is if I throw that bait out, and as that bait is falling, and again, especially a bait that, maybe I throw a jig or a swim jig or something like that, and before I even start working that bait, I get bit. Typically, what you're looking at is a fish that is seeing this bait come into the water and wanting to get it faster than its buddies. Like, oh, I'm gonna go get that before all you guys see it.
Okay.
And so that is an indication right there. I make a toss out there, and I'm expecting that my jig is gonna settle down to the bottom or to the tops of the weeds before I start working it. And like it hits the water, and all of a sudden, whoa, I got one. That's an indication that there's probably more than one there. And I better make another cast, okay? The second thing is I make my cast, and whatever happens, I'm working the bait, whatever. But if instead of a massive kind of strike, what I'm doing is I'm just seeing the line. All of a sudden, the line is just zipping way away from okay, I'm here, and all of a sudden the line is just moving very quickly to the right or to the left or something like that. That's another indication that fish is with a school, because what he wants to get away from, he wants to grab that bait and get away from,
So that, like, other fish
think about
from him?
Yeah, so that think about Charlie. You give Charlie, a bone or a treat, he wants to grab that treat and run way away from Wrigley. He doesn't want Wrigley to have any chance of stealing that thing away from him.
He absolutely does.
And that's what's happening with your bait. You throw the bait in, the fish grabs it, and now he wants to take that bait and get way away from the school. So that's great. Catch that fish, and then go right back to where you made that presentation and make another one, because there's likely to be more fish there. So that's the second thing that would tell me that there are baits. So number one is if you get bit real quick before the bait ever really starts to work, or if you see the bait move away from where it initially got bit.
But do the fish catch on? Do they realize, like, oh, we just saw our buddy do that, and now there's the exact same thing being thrown in the middle of our school?
That's gonna happen. You're actually jumping the gun to the third thing that I was going to say, and that is, so let's say you found the school and you're working this bait and you've caught one and you've caught two, and now you're there. Now you throw back again, and now I'm not getting bit. Well, try again. But now, before you leave, that doesn't mean, hey, there were only 2 fish there. There's 2 parts of that you want to pay attention to. Number one, it could be that you've taken that larger school and started to draw them away from that initial spot. Remember, you make a presentation and that bait moves towards you, those fish may follow that bait.
Okay.
They may not eat it, but they may follow that bait. That means they're not over there anymore. They're closer. They're between there and your boat. So you need to let those fish reset back to that location. So don't be afraid to come back to that location later.
Oh,
But the
okay.
other thing that I would do is I would make a presentation to that original location using a different type of bait.
Right.
So in other words, if I was catching them on a frog or if I was catching them on a swim jig out there, well, I'm working that swim jig back, and as soon as it goes over this thing, I'm getting hit. I throw the swim jig, I got hit again. I throw it again. Nope, I didn't get hit this time. Before I leave,
Right.
I'm gonna change baits. I'm gonna throw a wacky rig Cinco over there and let it, and just if a different presentation will trigger another fish that was in that school that, like you said, kind of, hey, I've seen that bait come by, and every time I see that bait come by, another buddy, hits
Catches
the road.
the dust.
Right. So do that. But again, like I said, don't be afraid, because you're gonna have an impact on that school.
Right.
And whether you're obviously taking fish out of that school, you're also training them in that when this bait comes by, guys leave. And so there will be a time when you're going to say, okay, I'm going to keep moving, but I wouldn't forget about that completely. Give it an hour or whatever, come back and see if they haven't reset up on that piece of structure or whatever, and you can go back and get another 1 or 2 or 3 off of that. There's a third indicator about it that you might be thrown to a school rather than just one bass.
Okay.
And that is, you're throwing, you get bit, and you're like, oh, I thought I had a bite, and then all of a sudden you get a bite. Okay.
Oh.
So, and that's what's going on is what we just talked about in that second situation. The fish had it, lost it, and another fish that was, hey, you got some food, kind of like that would be the situation where Charlie had the bone. I felt it. Charlie dropped the bone, and Wrigley picked up the bone, and now I got Wrigley. Okay, that kind of situation. So if that happens, it could happen on the first fish that you, boom, I got one, lost it, now I got another one. You may be in a school there, so
Okay. That makes total sense.
all right. Guys,
Sense.
you want to be able to watch the signs, for that mega school when it comes around. And mega schools, quite honestly, if you're fishing a tournament, mega school doesn't have to be any bigger than 5, but it could have 25 also. So, pay attention to that. We talk about this all the time, guys. We would certainly appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps our channel grow. I'm telling you, Megan, it is. Watching the numbers and seeing the numbers of guys that are subscribing, new people that are subscribing to the channel and that are sending comments and that it's cool that I love it. It makes us real happy. We're really cool to it's cool to be able to keep doing this, and we're into it, and it's because of you guys joining in. That's the part that makes it fun. So please join us with this if you feel like that's something that you want to do. We'd appreciate it. Send your comments, hit the like button, and we will see you tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors.
Stay channeled.